Hi, everybody. Welcome to Aquarian Pearls, Pearls of Wisdom. And we're completely delighted today to welcome Judy Deuchar, who is the General Manager of TVSN. And TVSN is Australia's #1 exclusive, amazing television shopping network. I had the honor of being on the cover once upon a time. And this is the Mother's Day edition. And we're going to ask Judy all about TVSN. But to start off, can I just welcome you to Pearls of Wisdom, Judy, and start with the first question, which is always welcome. And where did you grow up and do your studies?
Oh my goodness. Oh, firstly, thank you very much. I feel very honored to be here. Yes, I'm from Cape Town. I'm a Cape Town girl at heart. I grew up on a tiny little wine farm area. I went to farm school just outside of Cape Town itself. And then I moved, I met a young man at the time who's now my husband. And we moved to London, which we thought was for a year. And 17 years later, we found ourselves still there with kids and a mortgage. But he is my soulmate. And then I moved to Sydney just on 7 years ago. And I have an Irish passport, so I do feel... You're
doing well. Fantastic.
All over the place. Yeah.
Fantastic. But you did all your studies in South Africa before moving to England. Yeah.
No, I did. From a little girl, I wanted to be an art editor of a magazine. That's all I wanted to ever be. And I probably wanted to be a fire engine driver or something when I was very little. All my cakes were fire engines when I was up until... and I'm a real tomboy, but I wanted to study art, and I did well at school. I loved school. I loved getting involved. But what my dad refused to pay for art. He said, it's an absolute Mickey Mouse degree. That's ridiculous. So I thought, fine, I'll show you. So I did maths and I did statistics and a business science degree. And then I actually did art school in the evenings. I did graphic art in the evenings to get my diploma, to prove him wrong, which I did. Well, I hope. At least I proved I could get it. And then I went to go and work for Cosmopolitan magazine for a year in the marketing department.
In England?
No, actually in South Africa, in Cape Town.
Yes.
And then I thought to myself, I quickly realized that if I was ever going to get anywhere, I needed to actually be on the other side to learn what it was like on the retail side, which is really their biggest income, which is the advertisers. So I thought, okay, I've got a plan because I'm going to be the art director of this magazine one day. And went to look for a retail job, and I got a retail trainee position for like a head office role, and it was in a jewelry company, and I hadn't even thought about the buyer position. I wanted to go into marketing, and in the first 3 months they tell you have to do a month in stores, a month in the warehouse, and then a month in an area in the head office other than where you're going to be, and it happened to be in the buying office. And I absolutely loved it. And after like the 3-4 weeks, I was like, I don't actually want to do that marketing job. I actually want to be here. I love the fact that you got the creative and the maths. And then that's really what started my buying career and the love of jewelry.
Fantastic. And isn't it amazing how life sort of takes you to the next level? And if you just show up. I just finished a book by a guy called Michael Singer called The Surrender Experiment, and he basically ended up running a $1 billion software company, but he just wanted to meditate in the woods of Florida originally. But life just kept showing up, and then he bought a personal computer and learned to program it. And it's true, isn't it, that you just go to the next right thing, and it all seems to unfold. But and how did you get into the world of TV shopping, and when did you start in all of that?
No, sure. I didn't even know TV shopping existed. I went to the UK, and actually it was a very conservative jewelry supplier from the UK that used to be the supplier for the big chain store, American Swiss actually, in South Africa. And he heard that I was going to England, and he was like, oh, I'll definitely help you try and set you up with a job. And he got me, but I was like, oh, I'm going to the UK, and I've heard the jewelry's really conservative. Listen, I'm not going to lie to you. I arrived in London, and I was green, thought I was fancy pants, thought I'd really made my... And I was clueless. I was so clueless. But you don't know that at the time. You're young, you're ambitious, you kind of think, I should have been promoted 500 years ago. And literally didn't want to go into jewelry because I thought it was really old-fashioned in the UK. And I got offered a job as a buyer at Harrods and Burberry's. And then I was asking a good friend of mine that I'd known was quite a bit older than me, that it was really successful. And they said, Judy, you have to do something that you're interested, truly different, which is going to make you give yourself your brand, or give yourself something of interest, because where your passion is, that's where it's going to end up. Doesn't matter, where it's going to be. Don't just choose it for status. And I think it's a really good lesson. Anyway, one of the interviews was at QVC, and I remember arriving at Battersea PowerPoint Station and going, oh, I could never work here. It was like, they had spray paint everything all over the walls. And, like I'm so used to driving everywhere on my own, not used to public transport in England. It was like the first 2 months, completely ignorant. Went for the interview, and the lady was phenomenal, Kathy Evans, or Kathy Wood, and she had been very high up in Littlewoods. And she said to me, listen, whatever you put into it is what you're going to get out of it. But you got to put it all in. And I was like, oh, I quite like this job. And she, it was for a gold buyer position. And we spoke for 3 hours, everything about life. And the next day she phoned and offered me the position. And I was like, oh, you know what? I don't know anything about TV. I'm going back in a year's time anyway to get married. I'm obviously going to tell them that, but I'm in. And that's how I started buying gold and loved it ever since.
Wow. What year was that to start at QVC?
I started on the 21st of April, 1997.
And was QVC quite established in England, or was it quite new at that stage?
It was new. Do you know, it was only 14 months old. We were all in one tiny room. There were 3 of us that bought jewelry. Like, it was myself and and 2 assistants. We still had one bar fridge that we used for the milk and to put out, we were all
amazing
in like a 10 meter by 10 meter space. And I'll never forget, on my very first day, I sat down and they were all really shocked. I was like, what's the problem? They said, oh, you come from South Africa. We were expecting you to be black. I was like, what do you mean? It was really the first really good reality check of that I was in a international world, and I was clueless. But the assistant said to me, I said, oh, well, Doug, what do I do? And he said, well, what do you mean, what do you do? Like, what do you want me to raise a purchase order for? And I was like, what do you mean? And he goes, well, what do you want to buy? And I was like, okay. So we set up. It was really lovely. I think it's, and her words came back to me, whatever you put into it is what you're going to put out of it. So I helped set up all the new structures, all the buying plans, all the rotational cycles, learned a lot along the way, made so many mistakes, but just loved it. They gave me a lot of free rein, and I was there for 15 years. So it was a phenomenal business.
15 years is a great long time. Wow. And how much was the business turning over when you left after the 15 years?
Oh, I don't know if I'm allowed to say, but
it was phenomenal. But a lot.
Yeah. It was close to $1 billion US. So
yes, that's a lot of that's a lot of dollars per day, isn't it? In selling.
It's huge. I found something the other day that I got this printout at home, and it was from one of the first shows, and I'll never forget, I'd printed it out because I was really excited because we'd made £3,500 for the show. I mean, I don't think if they did that in a minute today that they'd be unhappy, but it's a phenomenal business and a phenomenal company. And it taught me a lot about negotiating, and it taught me a lot about, to your point about you've got to be there, but I think you've also got to not just be there, but you've got to be there positively. And you've actually got to take, you've got to take your own action. Probably one of my best managers that I've ever worked for is a gentleman by the name of Steve Hoffman. And he used to run, I think, Asia NBC. Got a very unusual way of, we met at a trade show in Vegas at a dinner where we were both incredibly bored by the speaker, and then they had like some music entertainment, and we were like, oh, we're definitely not going up to go and dance with everybody else, just wasn't our thing. And we ended up chatting and got on like a house on fire. I had no idea who he was, and he was the chairman of the TV shopping channel in Japan. And we kind of only knew right at the very end of our conversation. We got on really well. We kept in contact. And I kept sending these emails to QVC US going, you really need to hire, like if you ever need a guy in the US, or you should hire him, you should come over to our side, etc. And lo and behold, I was in Chesapeake Bay for a senior management conference, global senior management conference at QVC. And they were like, and I'd sent another reminder email going like, you really need to get hold of him. And they thought like, what does she know? Because he had actually just come for the interview, and he ended up being the CEO of the UK. And
how fantastic.
Yeah, so small world. But he always used to say to me, Judy, quality starts with you. Don't expect anybody else to do it. If you see a piece of paper on the floor, pick it up. pick it up. If you see something that's not correct, you fix it. I know it's not your job, but it is your job. If you're going to lead from the front. And, there are many days that I walk from that car park now and I see old tissues and hankies and old plastic packets on the way. And I'm like, my hands are full. Sure, if I don't hear his words, it drives me insane. I hear him saying, if you don't do it, Judy, who's going to pick it up? Lead from often every morning carrying tissues and packets.
But it's so good to have mentors along the way, isn't it? They're vital, and they're such great lessons. And then, how did you make the transition, or when did you make the transition to Australia with the family? And by now, you'd be married with children, right?
Yes.
So it's a big move to come to Sydney from London.
It's a big move, and there were a couple of good life lessons. My dad was, I come from a divorced family. My dad was incredible workaholic, very successful, incredibly successful. And at his funeral, he died about 11 years ago. At his funeral, I remember, I don't know, it was like maybe 2,000 people at his funeral. It was huge in Cape Town. Went back for the funeral, and people were saying to me afterwards, Judy, I'm so sorry, da, da, da. And somebody came up to me and said, oh, your dad was so proud of you. You're going to end up just like your dad. And I know they meant well, but I remember going stone cold thinking, oh, I can't end up like my dad. Like a broken marriage, really not having priorities straight with regards to money versus actual friendships. And, it's the biggest wake-up call. I'd say it's probably one of the biggest turning points in my life. And that moment with crystal clarity. And it bugged me ever since. And I'd just been promoted again. I was on the CEO route to go and work in an Asian country to head up another GVC. And I had a bit of a health scare probably 2 months after then I got back. And it was like God was saying to me, Judy, like you need to get your act together. I was very upset when I had to take the kids to school because I wanted to get into work early. And if I had to take them to school, it meant that I didn't get in early enough. It was a bit of a wake-up call. And then in the September afterwards, probably a year later, I remember closing the boot of the car one morning and just going, today's the day. And I walked straight up and just said, I'll write you a letter, but today I'm handing in my notice. And it was a very brave decision, but it's the best thing I did. I opened up a small consultancy business, which was wonderful. I worked all over Asia, mainly for those sort of 3 years. But I was in St. Lucia and drinking strawberry daiquiris at the pool. With my family on a family holiday, and I got phoned by a headhunter saying, are you interested in this job in Australia? I was like, oh no. And I'm not gonna lie, it's probably about 11 o'clock in the morning. I was probably a good 3 daiquiris in. And,
yes.
And I was like, oh no. And I took it very casually. I got back, I had an interview with the group CEO, and I was in my pajamas. And I was in a jacket. I'll never forget, I tied my hair up because it was 5 o'clock in the morning because of the time difference. My hair was in like a bun. I was in my jammy pants and I put a jacket on over a white t-shirt. And we just literally laughed for a whole hour. And I was going, why would I want the job? I mean, that was really rude. It wasn't very nice. And then I came over for an interview and they were fabulous. I never wanted the job. But I'm so grateful because it's a phenomenal company to work for. And, I arrived here not knowing anybody, don't have a soul, didn't have a school friend, which is unusual for South African, not to have anybody here that you knew.
And what year was that, Judy?
So that was, I did a little bit of a look-see in September 2013 and arrived 7th of Jan 2014.
And how old were your children then?
My little monkey had just turned 4, so I've got a little 4-year-old boy, or now just turned 12, and then I've got a 16-year-old daughter, so she was, I think, 8 or 9, and then my eldest son had just turned 13. So it was
a big, and they had a whole English life, basically, essentially, and your husband too, for many, many years. So it's a culture shock coming from England to Australia for everyone, and they're giving up their friends and their life. But how did everyone adapt? Was everyone pretty adaptable?
Just very interesting. When we first told them, they were like, we said, oh, we've got a big surprise. They're like, oh, we're going to Disneyland. I'm like, oh, no.
Not quite, but nearly.
Not quite, but they've adapted really well. My husband is a keen cyclist and outdoor hiker, and he loves that kind of thing. It's obviously yin and yang in our relationship. My eldest found it really hard. He went into high school and he found it hard because he had just had a fantastic circle of friends, and he's adjusted, and he's now second year uni at the University of Sydney and loves it. My little monkey, it was really funny. I think it's changed him because he's just so adaptable to everything. I'll never forget, every sort of second weekend we'd try and go and discover the Blue Mountains, or we'd go to a different place. And then every Sunday night, he would come back going, or as we're driving back into Sydney to our rental house, he'd go, oh, where are we going to stay this week? And I'm like, no, Max, we're going back home. In 2 different rental apartments for 2 months as we were trying to find something. So I think it's made him far more relaxed and far more casual.
Yes.
It's also given them a sense of what's really important. It doesn't matter if they go to Knox or Barker or Roseville. Really, like, no one in London's heard of those. No one here has heard of the London schools that every mother or
yes
stress over so much. And it really is it's been a phenomenal life learning lesson to actually go, what's really important? It's not for the pride and the glory. It's not for the status and that, because if that's what's really driving you, you have to really think twice.
Definitely. And for you in TVSN, has that been very different to QVC, or is it quite similar worlds, or in TV shopping?
Sure. It's so similar and yet it's so different. It's a pinprick of the size. The mentality is very different. We came from a very corporate environment, coming to a very relaxed environment. And I wasn't sure, like, is this Australia or is this the direct group? What's the thing? Because I remember sitting at my desk and thinking, okay, and then somebody in my team would walk past at like 10 to 10 in the morning going, morning. And I'm like, oh my God, there's no way I'd only turn up and walk in front of my manager's desk at 10 to 10 in the morning going, hi. You'd be petrified, right? And I mean, hopefully they're not going to be petrified with me, but so it's a very different culture as to what's important, which is actually lovely,
Yes.
But it takes a while to adapt to, in the UK, as it's very class orientated, and without you realizing, you end up going, you look at things, or those are your social cues, and you start realizing that it's that's not what it's about in Australia. And who cares about Hello Magazine or any of those kind of things compared to in London? That's like
yes, everything. Yes.
And so it has adapted. I think the way you do business is obviously a privately run company as well, but a phenomenally successful one with incredible owners who have been so generous in giving me a lot of rope to play with. It's been lovely because I think that there is often the tall poppy syndrome. Speak openly about that. It definitely exists, but it's not the only country that it exists in. It's a natural thing. We do that to ourselves. We do that to any newcomer in any environment, whether it be to the tennis club, the country, or a school. We all do that to people because you're trying to protect your space. So I don't think it's an Australian thing. I just think it is that. And I think it's where you have to reevaluate again, what are your principles. You've chosen to live in someone else's country that you're going to make yours, and you need to make it yours. You need to stop talking about back home, because actually this is home, and you need to embrace everything that it embraces. You can't keep going, oh, I can't believe it's so awful here because that was so amazing there. You've just got to you've got to realize the shadow that you cast. And I think that probably my biggest learning has been very much about, you take up positions. I feel really fortunate to have the position that I have. I feel like it's a privilege. And I think you learn somewhere along the line, hopefully, that it's not about status or your worth, or because you've been so amazing to get to that position, but it's about that you're here to serve, and you really are here you're here in that position to enable people to grow. And I think that once you click that with ambition, because I am ambitious and I'm very, very competitive, incredibly competitive. I think, but if you have what's really driving you at the back, then I think it makes a big difference.
I think so too. If once you work out that you're here on the planet to be of service, but you can still do your very best in everything. It's much more what's in it for all of us, and there's much more about we than me. And when I gave up my me and got into my we, everything always sort of flowers and works. It's a much safer, kind of nicer, not safer, but a much nicer place to live and work from, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
And also when you work at what you love, that's an amazing privilege, isn't it? Because it's not really work then, isn't it?
No, exactly.
But Judy, I find I was completely new to the TV business, and so our business for the family for the 5 generations has been selling to retailers essentially, and the interaction in the TV world with the customers. I met the buyer of jewelry on the plane at the Hong Kong show, and they said, "Oh, you're a pearl guy. We don't have a pearl show." And I thought it might really harm our wholesale to retail business, but it didn't at all. And it's grown, and we've got this great relationship with you and TVSN and the buyers. And
wonderful.
And I find the most gratifying thing, though, is that the customers are amazing. And we actually get to interact on the TV show directly with the customer, which in a retail store we're sort of giving the pearls, but it's not our business. But just to hear all the appreciation. And do you find that's is that one of your more favorite parts of the whole business, that your actual customers are so loving and interactive? It's really amazing, actually.
No, and it's a two-way street, because the more you feed that, the more they feed you. So I think that, we always say the difference between TV shopping and a traditional retailer is it's this, you've got the product obviously for everybody, it's the story and the storyteller. And it's about how do you make a product come alive? And we always say that now we're really moving into a bit more that we're experiential retail. We're not just the TV shopping channel, but we have a way of making the story come alive in a video format, in a live video format, because I think there's a real importance to that too. But you can watch it on any platform. So whether it's on your iPad or on your phone or on the TV, it's really about we're able to, with video as a medium, be able to make a product come alive. And you're right. And you're able to actually talk about the things that maybe some people don't want to talk about. For things like in jewelry, you can actually show the underside of the ring. That's why we do it. You can actually show the good, the bad, the ugly, the detail that maybe a craftsman has put into the collet or the gallery of a claw set stud earring. Often things that are missed. And why you've chosen to do something, versus someone else's. Because often, like on an internet site, you might actually see something, both pearls look the same, but you're able to go, look here, look at the reflection of this. That's how we'll test, whatever it might be that you're looking at. So you're able to really be personable. And I think in a world that's become so automated, and a world that's become so digitized and prescriptive, and this whole sort of artificial intelligence, it all has a beautiful place to play. But there's some searching within all of us, is just to go back to something that makes me feel special. And I say she, because I think for us, TV shopping is mostly girls, 98%. And it's about, you can come to a very technical decision as to why something will work or not work and what the price point should be. But if you haven't got this and you haven't felt it, it's not going to work. Like literally, it's unbelievable to see. You can see 2 very different guests selling exactly the same product, and one will be phenomenal. And it just resonates because there's something in it. So I love that world. I love the fact that if we invest in our customer, especially something during this COVID time, and we've been fortunate enough to have you for different things like masterclasses and tea times, and where there's a will, there's a way. We've been able to engage tremendously, which is great. So yeah, I think
COVID has changed the business somewhat in a way, and more people, we've seen in America and England too, that more people are at home shopping, and it's sort of been good for TV business. It's been and TVSN is so cheery too that some customers say they keep it on in the background during the shows. They just keep it on in the day because it's much happier than the news or something, and it's a really sunny, beautiful environment, isn't it? And do you have a favorite part of the business, or do you just love it all now?
Do you know what I've tried to challenge myself with is just on the happy thing. I thought I'd share with you actually. So our motto in my family is about be the light that you want to be today, or be the light.
Beautiful.
And at work we have our marketing department. Literally, we have a section which I've termed it the happy filter. So everything that we do needs to go through the happy filter. So it's our emails out, communication, because this is what, let everybody else deal with everything else. We just want to be positive about everything that we do.
Fantastic.
Even there's a positive way of handling nonsense, really. But in terms of a favorite part, I sit on a lot of trade boards for jewelry and for beauty. I also love beauty a lot. And I'm so not the beauty girl, you know what I mean? I'm not that girl that lunches. But I love that industry. And I suppose, if on one side, if you had to look at through one slice, I'd say that I really love the manufacturing side. I'm a nerd for factories. I love seeing and being able to work with people who are actually the craftsmen to get something to somewhere. But I suppose what I have been looking at is I love product. I mean, I'm clearly a product girl. I love pushing. There's no such thing as no, which drives, I think, the team nuts sometimes. And I'm also what I've had to learn is to be a little bit more patient because I'm a little fast. I'm like, hurry up. But I think what I'm really enjoying over the last 6 months, it's given me a chance to really reflect on the areas that I would normally have gone, oh, I don't really like that, which might be things like technical IT things or, like, oh, that's lovely that we've got that security patch or whatever it is that we're supposed to have. But I found that I need to be positive about it and approach it differently. So I have loved the last 6 months alone. We have done, I'm going great. And we need to attack this like I attack product. And we've got the most incredible things that are about to launch technically, which I think will also give us a wonderful experience afterwards. So I've always loved the product to give the experience. And I think I'm really learning to love the technical side in order to give the experience in the end. So, and how do they match?
Fantastic. Judy, and my last question, it was fantastic getting to know you and interviewing you and learning everything about you. But
sorry,
my
I
last
talk a
question,
lot.
no, it's the best. We're here to hear you. It's great. It's fantastic. But I'd love to ask you, if you were giving advice to a young person who is contemplating a life in the jewelry business or say the beauty business or the TV business in particular, from what you've learnt in your life, what would you say to them? That's my lucky last question.
I think, there's life lessons that were taught to me in terms of, whatever you put into it is what you're going to get out of it. The moment you find yourself criticizing your team, your manager, your colleagues, you've got to turn it around back on yourself and go, why am I not fixing this? Yes, everyone's going to disappoint you. We're all human. Humans disappoint. We're not perfect. And, don't complain about another department because they haven't done that. I'd say, woohoo, beautiful opportunity. Get right into it. Even if someone hasn't asked you to do it, you do it. Make sure that you are already doing the job that you want to be promoted into. And become invaluable. Become invaluable to your manager. Whether you love that manager or really don't like them, your job is to make their life easier. So even the worst boss, you can turn them around if you get them to, and I mean, I've had some shockers, but it all changes about your perception. You'll make it worse if you have a negative perception about it the whole time. And you can turn things around, but it's up to you. Quality starts with you. So
fantastic.
Yeah.
Judy, thank you. And that's such a lovely message, isn't it? To be the light that you want to shine on, your family motto as well. But
shine the light from the top of the hill.
Fantastic. Shine the light from the top of the hill. Judy, it's been such a pleasure being with you today. And thank you so much for your time and your energy and all your wonderful learning.
Oh no, absolute pleasure. It's so lovely to be a partner of yours. So it's fantastic. Thank you very, very much. A really lovely privilege.